any organization with people has people problems. As soon as you start getting north of like 20 people, you're starting to develop organizational structure, and you might start specialization in departments, and people do it in different ways. But any company like over 50, for sure, they have people problems. They're scaling out of control, and they need systems to fix that.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Today, we have got a special guest because I love hearing these kind of stories. We're going to dive right into it. Mike, tell us who you are and what you do.
Todd, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the Growth and Scaling Podcast. So I'm Mike Zani. I'm the CEO of the Predictive Index. This is the fourth company that I've purchased, sort of taken over and run and grown. We've sold the other three.
Love it.
And but the Predictive Index is a 68-year-old company. We bought a family-run business after 60 years.
Sheesh.
That did behavioral assessments and
Okay.
started with pencil and paper. Many of in your audience may have taken one to try and get a job. But we turned it into a piece of software, a talent optimization platform, which helps companies hire and post-hire, design good teams, inspire interactions, and diagnose problems.
I love it. Like, is it
With
like
their
to
talent.
incorporate things like DISC and things like that? Or do you have your own kind of flavor of those tests?
Todd, thanks for mentioning a competitor. I really appreciate that. No.
Hey,
No,
this is how you grow.
I know it is. Actually, we respect all psychometric tools, or most, and DISC is a competitor. So you would use it where you would use DISC. You know, we
Awesome.
are validated for pre-hire stuff where a lot of tools are not. Yeah.
Very cool. Hey, listen, it's always good to talk about that stuff because now you know who to benchmark it with. So
I was busting your chops. I'm happy to talk about anything.
Good. Well, dude, so tell me about it because I mean, you know, a 60-year-old process has got to work to some degree, but what did you, when you saw this opportunity, because clearly you're an experienced, acquisition guy. And when you see an opportunity like what you saw, what was it about this company that you thought there's something here that I can tweak, make some bends to, and make it work to my liking?
So I'm an okay acquisition guy. I'm a better operator. Like the acquisition is just so you can get a company under your control. So it's a necessary part of the process. But we were a client of the Predictive Index for 8 years before we bought it.
Wow.
And my business partner and I tried to buy it in 2009, got really close. They said no.
Yeah.
We finally bought it in 2014, but we saw how much it helped us with our talent issues at running and growing a small company.
Right.
And I used to call it the decoder ring for people. Like, it was like, oh gosh, I now know how to like work with Todd, like,
Yeah.
and the joys and frustrations between the two of us. So I just want to make sure that we're effective together. So it was the decoder ring. We tried to buy it. So it's a little like that old, Victor Kayyem commercial. I like the company so much, I bought it. And
Totally.
we saw that it was a diamond in the rough and needed a complete software rebuild.
Right.
And so we wanted to take on that project where the founding family, they were in for 60 years. They were very comfortable. They're making a lot of money. They didn't have that impetus.
Right. So I mean, you looked at it from a client perspective. You said, "Man, this is cool." But what was it about it that you said, "Man, instead of rebuilding from scratch, we're gonna buy this one and just gut it and make it better"? Well, why did you do that?
I tell people, so I buy used companies with other people's money, and that's probably because I don't have my own good idea. And it's like but I can run a company and I can see something. And, and the equivalent for a lot of people is home flipping. Now, I don't want to minimize what we do with a company to home flip, but there's some parallels. You see value where the others don't. You see the walls you need to rip down. You see the things you're going to do, and you make the decision, is this going to be a quick flip? Like, just paint it and do the landscaping? Or are we like no, we're going to really change this here
Right.
and build a gem. And I think you have to take that attitude. And there are some people, and I don't have this skill, who
Yeah.
see business opportunity and just create it. I'm in awe of them. I see business opportunity in other people's businesses and say, if we moved these 5 walls around and
Right.
put a little more capital here
Right.
and hired a few other XYZ, we could
Totally.
unlock all sorts of value.
I love it because I'm that other type, and I look at guys like you and think the same thing. Gosh, that's so smart that you can just do that. Whereas my first thought would have been, these guys are still using paper and pencil. Man, I could probably go create a product just like that, even better. You know what I mean? So I actually think guys like you are more unique than the idiots like me who think, dude, I'm just gonna go start a competitive company. I'm gonna go compete with these guys. You know what I mean? So I think it's
So
cool.
Todd, there's an interesting element though. So
Yeah.
what we do is we use the company's existing cash flow
Yes.
as financing for the new
Yes.
idea.
Yes.
So instead of having 0 customers,
Yeah.
0 capital, you already have customers,
I
you
get it.
already have capital, and you can leverage that,
Yes.
and there's less risk. Now there's some sticky icky stuff, like
Yeah.
all this legacy baggage that you have to drag along with
And
you
family.
that can Oh yeah. And people. There are some
Yeah.
people on the first company we acquired. When we bought the company, there were 45 people. Only 4 of those people made it past a year and a half. Now that's ugly, awful. And I don't say that because I'm proud that I fired 41 people.
Right.
It's
Right.
because like sometimes it's really messy work.
Yes. Well, look at Twitter. I mean, they're operating off of 20% of their overhead that they had a year ago. So,
And they're still operating.
I know.
It's pretty phenomenal.
It's
Although
so awesome.
some would say that they blew that last podcast, and maybe if they had some more engineers, they wouldn't have. But who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
Who knows? I know Elon will figure it out. But honestly, I look at guys like you and I think, what a smart way to do this, because literally, to your point, you've got clients, you've got cash flow, you've got people who know the brand, you've got some recognition, you probably have IP that has been established for a long time that you can leverage. Really smart stuff. So how did you, now that we kind of know what you do, what is this product? Who is this for? Like you mentioned small to mid-sized companies in your hiring and stuff like that. Tell us who needs to use this product.
Every organization with people, and
Yeah.
I don't even say business, it's organization. We're in churches, we're on sports teams.
Gotcha.
We're in for-profit, not for profit. But it's any organization with people has people problems. Now, companies with under 20 people usually do it the old-fashioned way. You get everyone in a room, you go out and get a cup of coffee, you bang through it.
Right.
But as soon as you start getting north of like 20 people,
Right.
you're starting to develop organizational structure.
Totally.
And you might start specialization in departments, and people do it in different ways. But
yeah,
any company like over 50, for sure, they have people problems. They're scaling out of control, and they need systems to fix that. Whether it be how do we hire, how do we build org structure, how do we build world-class teams,
totally.
How do we make sure that we deal with interpersonal dynamics? So we typically sell to the ideal customer profile is the person who's in charge of strategic talent management.
Gotcha.
Now, in a 50-person company, it's the CEO.
Right.
You start getting to a 200-person company, and you might have a head of HR who's talented enough.
Totally.
And it's usually not the first HR hire. First HR hire is often an event planner. They manage payroll. They write the employee handbook. They're not strategic. So it's really the first strategic HR hire, or the CEO, or when you get to bigger companies, it can be the head of sales because they build their own teams. It could be the head of technology who builds their own teams. So you're just looking for whoever is in charge of talent at an organization. The Red Sox is a client, and it happens that they use it for player development. It's the head of player development who cares.
Interesting. That's not what you'd expect, but that makes total sense. I mean, when you understand, we kind of went through this lesson in our family. I've got 7 kids. And so when we had younger kids, the big thing was, what's their love language, right? Like what does when we better understand what's important to them, it's a lot easier to keep them happy. You know what I mean? And discipline is a
That's
lot
right.
easier when
That's
you
right.
know what their personality type is. In hiring, this has got to be so powerful, because not only hiring, but even like understanding your client avatar. If you could get this type of info and somehow in an onboarding form, now you know how to work with this client better. You know what I mean? Can you do that?
Yeah, I mean we do it all the time. We obviously
Okay.
we teach sales teams on how to predict,
Behavior.
styles, in a prospecting basis. But I
Right.
think it's more meaningful when if let's just take a, how did you become a manager?
Yeah.
Usually it looks like this. You managed a project well or a process well,
Right.
and they says, "Wow, Todd, you're a really good manager. I'm going to give you a resource." And you're like, "What's a resource?" And you're like, "It's a person." And you're like, "I'm going to manage a person? Oh my God, I'm a manager." So it might be one resource, it might be five.
Right.
You get a resources, and you want to just be a good manager because you want to get promoted
Yeah.
or you want to make more money. And so you think about it and you go, wow, who's the best manager I've ever had? And you think
Right.
about it and you pick one and then you mimic their style. The only
Right.
reason you pick them is because their style worked for you, not
Totally.
because they were necessarily a good manager. So all you're doing is reinforcing your own preferences.
Makes
Whereas
sense.
we actually teach managers, hey, who do you have on your team?
Yeah.
What are their styles? And
Right.
how do you get the most out of them? Because isn't your job to get the most out of your people? Because when you do that, all of a sudden it's like, Todd, wow, you manage those 5 people really well. We're going to give you 10. You manage
100%.
those 10 people really well. We're going to give you 100. And
100%.
that's how you really develop world-class managers and leaders, is
100%.
giving them the key to unlocking value through people.
I am so glad you're here, and I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a program that we have assembled with a lot of our podcast guests and a lot of people who are listening to the show who are feeling the same way that they do. There's a recurring theme. You'll hear a lot of these founders talk about, I couldn't have done it without my team. I couldn't have done it without a support group of peers. I couldn't have done it without having someone to talk to that understood my feeling of isolation as an operator of my business. You see, you're not alone. It is hard running a business, and it's even harder when you know you can't express all your deepest concerns and frustrations with your executive team. It makes them nervous. It gets them scared. You don't want scared people on your executive team. So where do you turn? The Captain's Council is where you turn. The Captain's Council, it is an organization that we are put together with podcast guests, as well as people who are listening who are in the same boat. You see, peers are the only ones that can give you the type of empathy, the type of advice that only a founder or operator know and understand. Go check it out at captainscouncil.com. I know you're going to love what you see there. We have put together an organizational structure that has small group settings, a global community of founders and operators, as well as monthly and quarterly in-person events. You're going to love what you see there. I can't wait for you to check it out and enjoy the rest of this episode. Well, listen, for those listening, this is huge stuff. Like, I know you're talking about your product, but this is management in general. When you're trying to grow and scale a business, when you understand these dynamics and these people dynamics, it greatly enhances your ability to grow and scale, and it leverages your people better because they're always happier to work in an environment where they feel understood. Is that right?
Absolutely. And they want to feel like a good teacher teaches a subject one way. A great teacher modifies themselves
Totally.
to make sure that the student understands. And I think that's the same with management. You just
Totally.
modify yourself to get the most out of your people. And if you do that, the people will look back in years and say, God, I loved working for Todd. He got me. He made
Right.
sure, and you already are doing it with your kids. Now you're using the 5 love languages, which
Right.
is fine for your family, maybe not
Right.
quite as appropriate for business settings. That's
Agreed.
effectively what the predictive index is and does, is we give people a framework and a repeatable scientifically validated tool so
Love
they
it.
can do just that. Like, and
Love it.
honestly, I'm acts of service. My wife is words of affirmation. I screw this up all the time.
Yes.
I need to be a better husband,
I
partner
get
of
it.
hers. Yeah.
Trust me, I get it. My wife is acts of service, and so I understand like that language. I'm touched, So it's a very different thing for me. When I go give her a hug, she's like, "Yeah, go do the dishes or something," And it does the same type of thing for employees. It's the same type of thing, though. Managing people, to your point, is business, and it's the people in your organization. It's the people who are your clients. It's the people who are you're always working with people. And so when you see a product like this and you can implement what you're doing now, tell us about the growth. I mean, how have you been able to change what was happening for 60 years in the time that you adopted this company and took it over and started restructuring and rebuilding and retooling? What have you been able to do with it now since acquisition?
Yeah. So the company is first 60 years. I want to make sure people aren't thinking I'm saying 16.
Yeah,
First
yeah,
60
six
years. So it
zero.
founded in 1955. So just put
Wow,
that in context. It's like
it's
it.
crazy.
So they went from 0 to 16.5 million in the first
Yeah,
60 years. Steady Eddie growth. You look at their
right.
historicals and it was just click, 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 nice growth. You even saw how it did in recessions. It was
Wow,
beautiful to look at the historicals. So when we bought the company, we said, hey, we could just keep this thing as a cash cow,
right.
or we wanted to do something meaningful. We wanted to take some of its cash flow, reinvest it,
Yeah,
and turn it into a grower. So
right.
in the last 8 years, we've grown from 16.5 million to 100 million.
Woo.
And we've done that by sort of, blowing up the old company. Like
Right.
we had to, there were 34 people, we're now like 250.
Wow.
There a lot of the people who were there because it was comfortable. It
Right.
was a family-run business.
Right.
It didn't have huge growth expectations. We made it uncomfortable. And not unpleasant, but uncomfortable. If you read our Glassdoor ratings, like, this company moves fast, man. It's like we move fast.
I love
And
it.
if you look at Daniel and I, my business partner Daniel, our behavioral profiles, we're incredibly impatient. That's one of the dimensions we measure. It's like
I love it.
we're off the chart 3 sigma impatient. We like driving companies hard. That's
Right.
that's what we do. So the hardest thing that we had to change, this company had a distribution system, a group of value added partners
Yeah.
that sold and serviced and consulted on the predictive index. There were 47 of them when we bought the company. Most of them were recruited before 1990.
Wow.
So they were 30 years into this business, and or 20 anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were comfortable. So when we came in and said, oh, we're smarty pantses, we want to change this place, and they're like, whoa, 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 you don't know what you're doing,
Right.
you
Right.
haven't
Right.
been here before, we know more about the business than you do, and hold your horses.
Right.
And we just said, that won't do. There are no sacred cows. We are
Right.
blowing up stuff, and we're going to grow this company. And it was actually the change management with our distribution channel, because these are independent contractors. They
I
are
get it.
not, you can't make them do stuff. You
Right.
can suggest stuff,
Right.
you can hope, but we also said you really can't fight headquarters. If you're a
Right.
Ford dealer and they want to stop selling convertibles, you're not going to sell convertibles. That's how it
Right.
goes.
Right.
So it's this, we're in this boat together, shared fate. And change management with the distribution channel was, even to date, is the single hardest thing that we do. And I really feel that it's like my advice to my 2014 self
Right.
is, hey, change management is a system and a process. You get
Right.
people used to change and more comfortable with it, and you deliver on the promise of the last change. People
Totally.
get more uncomfortable with the next. You keep this, you're like, you turn into this, like,
Totally.
okay, we're getting comfortable with it. It's
Totally.
not the same thing every day.
Right.
So that
Right.
that was the single hardest thing. And sometimes publicly executing a sacred cow is important. And they're like, what do you mean? And you're like, you know that thing you said we would never do? We're about to do it live in gory detail, and it's going to be okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, this is so fun because, I love, I don't know. I guess I should say that a lot of people treat their business as if it's their baby. It's their sacred cow. Everything's a sacred cow in their business. And this is the way we've been doing it for years. I would just love to be present in one of these scenarios where you're doing and executing these types of changes, because so many of us get stuck in our own way of growth and scaling. It's okay to be a $15 million year company. Like, that's okay. But if you really want to grow and scale beyond that, you've got to start. One of the first things I teach my clients is, what products can we get rid of? What we need to do a burnout of stuff that isn't making sense anymore, and really put all our energy into this one thing that's more profitable. It's better. It's going to work for us, and we can replicate this a lot easier. As you've done this now with 4 different companies, what are some typical things that you see that need to happen to kind of get them into more of a growth mode instead of just a maintenance mode?
Yeah. You just made me think of something, and I'm going to get back to your
Yeah.
question, but about change management. I'm going to share with you this schematic.
All right.
It's sort of 20% of people get on board with change immediately or thereabout. 20% are never going to get on board for any reason. So you're trying to win over the hearts and minds of the big middle.
Right.
And like, don't focus on the objectors at first. Just
Right.
You're trying to win over the hearts and minds, because just doing battle with the objectors, it's like this guy says, your objective
Totally.
is to cross the swamp, not fight all of the alligators. Sometimes you have to
Right.
fight an alligator, but cross the swamp. So the killing of the sacred cow, sometimes it happens in the 20% detractors. When someone
Right.
goes, you come over here, Todd. You're like, what? You're like, I'm publicly executing you. And you're like, wait a minute, no. And you go, you've been a detractor on this change for too long, and I'm just letting the people in the middle know it's not okay to be you. And they're
Right.
going, wait a minute. And then they'll go, I feel a little bit more comfortable with that change now. I saw Todd get publicly executed. Now, I'm not an inherently mean person, but it's sort of
Right.
like, don't stand in the way of this greater good,
Totally.
this goal, this mission, because you're saying, I don't like the change that we're doing. So
Totally.
I keep like you're the leaders who are trying to change their company meaningfully. It's like,
Right.
think about it. 20% right away, 20% never. Win the hearts and minds in the middle. And sometimes you got to do that. Make it uncomfortable to
Right.
be in that lower 20.
Well, and I've seen, over the past few months, those leaked tweets that show the mass execution of those sacred calves at Twitter, and it's interesting. You do have to be that bold sometimes, and you do have to. I would say this probably to every business. My first partner and I, my first business partner, we had a saying every month we meet together, and we'd say, okay, it's not who we don't hire, it's who we don't fire that's really prohibiting our growth. And so you really have to evaluate regularly what people in your organization are keeping you from reaching the benchmarks, reaching the goals, or seeing the vision that you need to have. Because if you've got someone aligned with the vision of where you're trying to take this thing, all of a sudden your time commitment to managing that person just went from 100 to 5. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a powerful thing when you've got people aligned to the vision of where you're trying to take the company.
So every CEO is a strategy. You
Right.
can argue whether they're good and bad. Most, almost 100%, have some sort of financial plan, 1 to 5 years, to support that strategy.
Sure.
But tragically few have a talent strategy.
Agreed.
And strategies don't execute themselves. People execute strategies. It's like you wouldn't have a business plan without a financial plan. You shouldn't have a strategy without a talent strategy. And
Agreed.
usually if they do, they're like, I've got one. You go, no, you've got a sheet in Excel that says you're going to
Right.
have 5 people in Q2. You're going to hire them.
Right.
I actually think sport is so much farther ahead of business. And
Yeah.
it's because they have salary caps,
Yep.
and they usually have
It's
headcount
funny.
caps.
It's so
You're like,
funny. Yeah.
the football team's allowed like 55 people. The basketball team's allowed 13 people. The
Right.
baseball team 25 people. So when you have 25 people, I'm going back to the point, it's not who you hire, it's who you got to make room for people. You're like, listen,
Totally
I
agree.
know that you were the hero 2 years ago and you're loved, but you are not productive. We're sending you down to AAA, and we're
Right.
making room for the new kid.
Totally.
And
No, listen,
it
you're
seems
nailing it.
brutal.
Yeah.
It seems brutal, but you're like, we have to do this or we're not going to win this year. We can't talk about 2 years ago.
Agreed.
And businesses often you're like, oh, that's Uncle Charlie's son. He sits there nicely and he doesn't make too much noise. And you're like, that
Right.
may be true, but
Right.
he's keeping someone from being amazing.
No, it's so funny. I watch The Office with my kids sometimes, my teenagers, and surprisingly, still a very relevant show in my family, apparently. But when we watch The Office, I look at the employees there and I think every single one of those people would likely be fired if that was my company, you know? And I think that you really have to promote growth through your people. I love what you said about executing strategy happens from people. It doesn't just happen with a good plan.
Sure.
So I love this conversation. Honestly, Mike, I think so many good lessons that we've been able to cover in here. I want to, before we close this conversation out, I really want to focus in on maybe some last, common challenges that you see, some advice to overcome those things. And then I'd love to hear someone in your circle, a shout out to someone who's really been an influence to you as you've been going through these growth journeys in these companies. But let's start with like the last thing that you see most commonly that people make the mistake of not doing.
Yeah, I actually think what you say no to is so important. It's everyone brings, especially when you're in top leadership,
Right.
you end up becoming the ultimate arbiter of these ideas or decisions.
Right.
And the clear yeses are easy. The no's are frequent and hard, and
Right.
it's just so easy to lose your focus and wander away from what's really making you great. And you said it in like, what products are we going to jettison? You're like,
Right.
we got to say no to these unprofitable clients. We got to
Totally.
say no to these unprofitable product lines. We got to
Totally.
say no to the 5th idea, even if it's a good one. You're like, maybe not now. Like,
Yeah.
and really being brutal with the no. And they're like, it sucks sometimes.
I
You
love
want to
that.
say yes,
Yeah.
but you're also that's why you get paid for the hard job. You're like, you
Yep.
got to say no to even good ideas, because you got to make sure the stuff that's really killing it for you is able to be its best.
Totally agree. Great advice. Honestly, fantastic advice. Now give us a shout out, buddy. Who is that in your circle? Who's the person that
I
kind
got
of
I got to I got to do this. So I'm a Naval Academy dropout,
nice.
and the coach who recruited me to the Naval Academy to sail for them. I was a really good sailor. I coached at the '96 Olympics in sailing.
Nice.
When I was 28, he says, Mike, get out of the marine industry while you can. It's too late for me. And I was like, he goes, I know you. You're about to stay in this industry. And
Yeah.
he says, he says, get out. He's the one who really smacked me in the head hard enough,
I love it.
and I respected him enough that I actually I decided to go to business school. I ran into the business model where I could buy used companies with other people's money.
Right.
I love what I'm doing. I invited this guy to my wedding 10 years after that moment. I gave him a hug, and I'm like, you changed my life, and you cared
Right.
enough
Right.
to punch me right in the nose hard enough to be like,
Right.
wow, I should pay attention to this comment. My dad couldn't have gotten away with that. No one related to me could have gotten away with
I
that.
love it.
Even a close coworker, they wouldn't
Right.
have gotten away with it. He did, and I owe him for that. Gary Bodie.
Gary, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Dude, that is so awesome. What a fun shout out. I love hearing those stories. And truly, I appreciate you and your time today. This has been a fantastic interview. I think there's snippets of here that we could splice up and post all over the internet and influence people, because this is really, really good content. Really, really good stuff. Thank you, Mike, for sharing it with us.
Todd, I've enjoyed it. I've got a shameless plug.
Did it?
My
Hit
book,
it, man.
The Science of Dream Teams.
Love
it's
it.
A Wall Street Journal bestseller. You should read it if you like any of this content. But more importantly, keep watching the Growth and Scaling podcast. Todd, I love how your flow and how you get this going.
Thanks,
Short
dude.
and sweet.
Appreciate it. That's the way it should be. Impatience, right?
Impatience.
All right. Well, go catch that book, and we'll put links to it in the show notes. And anyone that is interested in the content you heard today, you should buy this book. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Todd. Have a great day.
I hope that episode was as good for you as it was for me. I honestly just love the personality of Mike. I love what he's doing in this business. What a fun conversation. I hope that it helps you. I hope it gives you insights into what you need to do in your own growth journey. All of us have a different growth journey, but there are similarities and parallels along the way that you're going to find when you meet and talk with other business founders and operators. It is so fun to network with people like what we have on our podcast today and hear their experiences and hear what their challenges have been. I hope you learned. And I hope you learn also that there is so much to learn by networking with other peers in your industry. In or out of your industry, you find insights from other operators that you don't find from an employee or even from a board member. These types of groups are important, and we have put one together called the Captain's Council. If you haven't heard already, the Captain's Council is an organization of other founders and operators who are way beyond launch, looking for ways to improve their next steps of growth. Our businesses in the Captain Council are looking for ways to get to that next level without having to give everything away. That's where peers come into play. Other founders and other operators see those insights, see those things that you're not seeing when you're deep in the weeds of your own business. Learn more at thecaptainscouncil.com, and we hope to catch you on the next episode of the Growth and Scaling podcast. We can't wait to see you there.